You've been trying to hold the pen in a story that doesn't even belong to you. That's why you feel worn out. Every time you think you've got it handled, life throws something you can't predict. And you sit there wondering, why can't I fix this? The truth is, you're not supposed to fix everything. Some things are beyond your reach because they're not meant to be in your hands. Control feels good in the moment, but it wears you down over time. You start managing people, managing outcomes, managing situations, and before long you're drained. You're tired, not because of your work, but because of the pressure of pretending to be in control. That weight isn't natural, it's crushing, and the longer you carry it, the more it breaks you. You think if you don't hold on, everything will fall apart. That's the lie control whispers to you. But let me ask you this. How many times did you hold on as tight as you could and it still fell apart anyway? How many times did you map out every detail and the plan still collapsed? That's your proof right there. You're not the one running the show. When you grip something too tightly, you actually strangle it. You don't allow it to breathe, to grow, to move the way it should. That relationship you're trying to force, that opportunity you're begging to open, it won't work because you won't let go. The tighter you squeeze, the more you lose. Sometimes control is nothing more than fear disguised as wisdom. You call it being careful, being strategic, being smart. But deep down, it's fear saying, I don't trust what I can't predict. And fear will rob you every single time. It takes your peace, your sleep, your hope, your joy. When you let go of control, you're not falling. You're finally free. Free from the lies that told you it was all up to you. Free from the pressure that convinced you you're the one who has to keep the world turning. Free from the stress of carrying what you were never supposed to carry. The truth is, life gets better when you loosen your grip. When you say, I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to know every outcome. I don't have to control what's not mine. That's when you breathe again. That's when the heaviness lifts. And when you finally take your hands off the wheel, that's when you realize God had it the whole time. You were never driving. You were just stressing yourself out, thinking you were. Fear doesn't just whisper, it shouts. It shouts in your head when you're about to step into something new. It shouts in your chest when you're about to take that risk. Fear is the voice that says, don't let go, don't trust, don't move. And because it feels so loud, you start believing it must be the truth. But fear isn't the truth. It's the trap. Fear locks you in a cage that isn't even real. It builds walls that don't exist. But you walk around like they're solid. You don't apply for the opportunity, you don't take the step, you don't open your heart because fear told you you couldn't. And the saddest part? Fear doesn't have power until you give it permission. Fear always asks, what if you lose? But it never asks, what if you win? Fear says, what if you fail? But it never says, what if you succeed beyond what you imagined? Fear's job is to shrink your vision. It takes your eyes off possibility and glues them to limitation. When fear runs your life, you become a prisoner of what if. What if I'm not enough? What if it doesn't work? What if they laugh at me? What if I can't make it? But here's the thing. Faith uses the same words. Faith says, what if this is the moment everything changes? What if this is the opportunity I've been praying for? What if God's hand is all over this? Fear doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck, and stuck is worse than failing. Because when you fail, at least you learn, at least you grow, at least you move forward. But when you stay stuck, years pass, opportunities die, dreams fade, and you're left wondering what could have been. You can't let fear make your decisions because every time it does, you shrink your destiny. Every time you say no because of fear, you push back what God is trying to push forward. Every time you let fear win, you trade your future for your comfort zone. Fear will always knock at your door, but you don't have to answer. You don't have to invite it in, don't have to sit with it, don't have to feed it. Let it knock while you keep walking. Let it scream while you keep moving. Let it shake while you keep trusting. Because the truth is, fear can't stop you unless you stop yourself. And the moment you recognize that, fear loses its grip. You can't claim to trust while still holding the strings. If your hands are gripping every outcome, then what you have isn't trust. It's fear in disguise. Trust begins the moment you say, "This is no longer mine to manage." That's the line where your control ends and God's power begins to show. Think about how often you've tried to manipulate situations to work in your favor. You call it making it happen, but what you're really doing is blocking what was meant to flow. Because as long as you're in the way, God doesn't have the space to step in. Trust requires you to step aside. It's not that God can't move while you're still holding on. It's that you won't recognize it's Him if you never release it. You'll keep crediting your strategy, your hustle, your effort, instead of realizing it was His grace. Letting go is what exposes who's really been in charge. The hardest part about trust is that it feels like losing control. But the truth is, you never had control to begin with. You just thought you did. Life has been proving that over and over. The things you thought you could manage slipped through your fingers anyway. That should tell you something. Trust isn't about having all the answers. It's about being okay without them. It's about saying, "I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know through who, but I know it's coming." That's where peace starts, not in the details, but in the surrender. And here's what trust does. It takes the pressure off you. It takes the weight off your chest. It removes that constant stress of wondering if you're doing enough. Because when you really trust, you stop asking, "What if it doesn't work out?" And you start saying, "Even if I can't see it yet, I believe it's already done." Trust is the handoff. It's when you take what's been breaking you, hand it over, and leave it there. Not handing it over and grabbing it back the next day. Handing it over for real. Leaving it where it belongs. Because that's when miracles happen. At the exact moment you finally let go of your way and open yourself up to His way. You've been fighting battles that were never yours to fight. That's why you're exhausted. You go to bed worn out, wake up tired, and spend the day drained. It's not your workload, it's your worry load. You've been wrestling in your mind, wrestling in your spirit, wrestling in your sleep. But the truth is, rest will never come through more control. Rest comes through surrender. Rest doesn't mean you stop working. It means you stop stressing. Rest doesn't mean you quit. It means you quit carrying it alone. Too many of us are tired because we confuse effort with control. We think if we stop worrying, things will fall apart. But the truth is, worry never fixed a thing in your life. Wrestling is when you replay the same situation over and over. Wrestling is when you argue with yourself in the shower, rehearse conversations in your head, strategize 50 different outcomes, and none of it changes a thing. Wrestling is nothing but wasted energy. Real peace is not found in more figuring out. Real peace is found in more letting go. It's when you finally stop asking, "What can I do to fix this?" and start saying, "God, it's yours now." Rest is knowing the outcome doesn't depend on your strength but on His. And the crazy thing is, once you let go, you actually feel lighter. You start to realize how heavy that burden really was when you were trying to carry it alone. You thought the stress was normal, but it wasn't. You thought sleepless nights were just part of life, but they weren't. That was the weight of wrestling. Rest is not laziness. Rest is faith in motion. It's declaring with your posture, "I believe so much that this is handled, I'm going to stop pacing and start trusting." Rest is confidence without the need for control. Wrestling wears you down, but resting builds you up. Wrestling drains you, but resting restores you. Wrestling steals your focus, but resting sharpens your perspective. That's why you can't afford to keep fighting for control. You need to learn how to rest in trust. Because once you stop wrestling, you finally discover the peace that comes when you hand it over and walk away. Some of you are still carrying weights from yesterday that have no place in your tomorrow. You're dragging old hurts, replaying old conversations, clinging to old memories, and it's holding you hostage. The past isn't supposed to be a prison, it's supposed to be a lesson. But you've been using it as a cage. That heartbreak you keep reliving, that's why you can't fully love now. That failure you keep rehearsing, that's why you can't take risks today. That mistake you keep punishing yourself for, that's why you can't step boldly into your future. The past doesn't just remind you, it restrains you. When you keep replaying what happened, you actually keep it alive. You think you're just remembering, but really you're resurrecting pain that should have been buried. Every time you go back, you reopen wounds that were meant to heal. That's why you can't move forward. You're still bleeding from yesterday. Releasing the past doesn't mean forgetting it. It means refusing to let it control you. It means saying, yes, that happened, but it won't define me. Yes, I fell, but I'm not staying down. Yes, I was hurt, but I won't live bitter. That's release. That's freedom. Some of you are still angry at people who have already moved on. They're not even thinking about you, but you're stuck thinking about them. That's the trap of unforgiveness. It doesn't lock them up. It locks you up. Forgiving doesn't mean they were right. It means you're tired of being wrong by carrying it. The past was a teacher, not a destination. Its job was to shape you, not to shackle you. But when you keep holding it, you're treating what was supposed to be temporary as permanent, and that's why you're stuck. Releasing the past opens space for your future. It clears your hands so you can grab hold of what's ahead. It empties your heart so you can be filled again. It closes one chapter so you can start writing the next. And once you finally release it, you'll realize you weren't losing. You were making room for something better. Trust isn't something you do once and then forget. Trust is a decision you make every single day. Every morning, you wake up with two choices: stress about it or trust through it. That choice is yours. Nobody else can make it for you. Some days trust feels natural, other days it feels impossible. But that's the truth about faith. It's not a feeling, it's a decision. Even when you don't feel it, you can still choose it. Even when everything looks wrong, you can still say, I choose to believe. The mistake we make is thinking trust is permanent, like flipping a switch that stays on forever. But the reality is, it's more like a light you have to turn back on every morning. Because fear will always try to switch it off. Stress will always try to dim it. Worry will always try to cut the power. You've got to build trust like you build muscle, through repetition. You trust when it's hard. You trust when it's confusing. You trust when it feels unfair. And the more you choose it, the stronger it grows. Trust doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you don't follow it. It doesn't mean you don't see the obstacles. It means you don't let them dictate your decisions. Trust is walking through the fire, saying, even here, I believe I'll make it. Every day you choose trust, you're saying, I refuse to carry this weight. I refuse to live with this stress. I refuse to be controlled by my fear. That's a powerful choice. That's freedom. When you make trust a daily decision, it becomes your default posture. Stress stops being your first reaction. Fear stops being your loudest voice. Worry stops being your comfort zone. You start living lighter, freer, stronger. Because trust isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you wake up and decide. You've been sitting there with a notebook, a plan, a timeline, and a backup plan for the backup plan. You've drawn up every scenario, every move, every what if, and still nothing looks like it's coming together. That's because you can't outthink God. His ways aren't just higher, they're beyond what you can calculate. Your brain wants logic, but God works in miracles. Your mind wants straight lines, but God works in curves. Your vision is small compared to His. You're worried about step 2 while He's already standing at step 10 saying, I got you. You're stressing about the wrong detail because you don't see the whole picture. Think about how many times in your life things didn't go the way you planned, but they ended up better than you imagined. That wasn't coincidence. That was proof that His mind is greater than yours. You couldn't have scripted that outcome. You wouldn't have even thought to ask for it. You want to predict, you want to calculate, you want to map it all out. But faith doesn't work with blueprints. Faith works with trust. You don't get to see the whole staircase, but you're still called to climb it. You don't get the manual, but you're still called to build with what's in your hand. And here's the thing, you'll never be smarter than God. You'll never be quicker, wiser, or more strategic than Him. That means your best idea still falls short compared to His plan. And that should free you, not frustrate you. It means you don't have to know it all. When you keep trying to outthink God, you'll overthink yourself into anxiety. You'll overplan yourself into paralysis. You'll spend so much time in your head that you never move your feet. But when you stop overthinking and start trusting, that's when things actually start happening. You don't have to figure out the whole picture. You just need to trust the one who painted it. You don't have to carry the whole plan. You just need to take the step you see. And the moment you stop trying to outthink Him is the moment you free yourself to live in the flow of what He's already prepared. You've been praying, waiting, hoping, and still nothing looks like it's changing. You start asking yourself, did I miss it? Did God forget about me? Maybe it's not going to happen at all. But hear this. Delay doesn't mean denial. Just because it's not now doesn't mean it's never. Some blessings require timing. Some doors can't open until the foundation is ready to hold the weight. What looks like waiting is actually preparation. What looks like a pause is really protection. God's not stalling you, He's setting you up. Think about how many times you wanted something right away, but when it finally came later, it made sense why it had to wait. The maturity you gained, the lessons you learned, the growth you experienced, that's what made you ready. Without the delay, you would have mishandled the blessing. Delays stretch you. They stretch your patience, stretch your faith, stretch your perspective. Delays reveal whether you trust God's timing or only trust your own. Anybody can believe when it happens quick. But it takes real faith to still believe when the clock feels slow. Waiting doesn't mean you're being punished. It means you're being positioned. Every season of waiting has a purpose. Maybe the people you need around you aren't ready yet. Maybe the opportunity itself isn't in place yet. Maybe your own character needs more development. The delay is doing something in you. When you confuse delay with denial, you start moving in desperation instead of faith. You try to force doors that aren't ready to open, and all that does is leave you frustrated. But when you trust the timing, you stop rushing, and you let it unfold at the right pace. Patience doesn't mean you sit back and do nothing. Patience means you keep showing up, keep working, keep believing, while trusting that when the time is right, it will happen. Because the truth is, when God says yes, no delay can stop it, and no obstacle can block it. You've been told surrender means giving up. You think letting go means quitting, but surrender isn't weakness. It's strength in the purest form. It takes more courage to let go than to keep pretending you've got it all handled. Surrender is not about losing. It's about shifting. It's taking the burden off your shoulders and putting it where it belongs. You can't call yourself strong if you're too afraid to admit you need help. Real strength is being able to say, I can't carry this, but I know who can. The world will tell you to grind harder, push stronger, carry more. But sometimes strength looks like silence. Sometimes strength looks like open hands. Sometimes strength looks like stepping back and saying, I trust what I can't see. Surrender doesn't mean you stop moving forward. It means you stop moving in your own strength. It doesn't mean you stop working. It means you stop working against yourself. It doesn't mean you stop fighting. It means you stop fighting battles you were never meant to fight. Weakness is pretending you're okay when you're breaking inside. Weakness is carrying a load that's killing you just to look strong in front of people. Weakness is pride keeping you from peace. But surrender, that's power. That's faith in action. When you surrender, you open the door for miracles. You open the door for breakthrough. You make space for blessings you couldn't force on your own. You're not giving up. You're giving over. And when you finally surrender, you realize you were never supposed to win the fight alone. You were supposed to hand it over from the start. Surrender is not the end. It's the beginning of seeing things happen in your life that your strength could never make happen. Some of you are holding on to things that expired a long time ago. You're clinging to relationships that ended, jobs that drained you, habits that broke you, and you're still trying to breathe life into what God already buried. That's why you're so tired. You're trying to resuscitate what's dead. There's nothing worse than feeding energy into something that's already over. You call it loyalty, but really it's fear. You're scared to let go because you don't know what life looks like without it. But keeping something dead in your hands keeps you from receiving what's alive. Sometimes the scariest thing is empty hands. You don't want to feel the space where that person used to be, where that job used to be, where that dream used to be. But empty hands are necessary if you're going to receive what's next. If you keep clinging to dead weight, you won't have the capacity for new opportunities. That's why new doors can't open. Your arms are full of old stuff. That's why you can't move forward. You're dragging things that were never meant to follow you. Holding on to dead things doesn't preserve you. It poisons you. It fills your spirit with frustration, with bitterness, with regret. It keeps you cycling in the same emotions, the same patterns, the same pain. Letting go doesn't mean you dishonor what was. It means you accept what is. It means you're strong enough to say, this season is done, and I refuse to live in a graveyard when God is calling me to life. Dead things don't need your energy. They need your release. They need you to stop feeding them, stop rehearsing them, stop dragging them into tomorrow. Because the moment you let go of the dead, you make room for the living. Faith isn't just belief, it's movement. You can't just sit back and say, I trust while doing nothing. Faith without action is empty. Real trust gets up, gets moving, and takes steps, even when the path isn't clear. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. Too many of us are waiting for all the answers before we move, but faith doesn't work like that. If you had all the answers, you wouldn't need faith. Faith is the push that gets you out of the boat, even when the water looks dangerous. Faith is the drive that makes you apply when the odds are against you. Faith is the courage to step forward when fear tells you to stay still. Action is what proves your trust. Anybody can say they believe, but when you move on that belief, that's when it becomes real. You can't just speak faith. You've got to walk it, breathe it, live it. Sometimes you've been praying for God to move, but He's been waiting on you to take the step. He already opened the door. You just haven't walked through it yet. He already put the opportunity in place. You just haven't acted on it. Faith doesn't eliminate the risk. It empowers you to move despite it. It doesn't promise a smooth path. It promises a purposeful one. Faith without action is like a car without gas. It looks good, but it doesn't go anywhere. When you start moving, even in uncertainty, that's when momentum builds. That's when doors open. That's when resources show up. Because God responds to movement. He blesses steps, not just thoughts. Your plan might be neat, tidy, and logical, but God's plan will always outsize it. You're asking for survival while He's preparing abundance. You're asking for one open door while He's planning a whole new house. You're praying for just enough, and He's looking to overflow. The problem is, you've been measuring His plan by your vision. But your vision is limited. You only see what's around you. You only see what you've experienced. God's vision is limitless. He sees what you've never seen, dreams what you've never imagined, and provides in ways you can't predict. If He gave you exactly what you asked for, you'd miss the greater thing He had for you. That's why sometimes the answer doesn't match your request. You asked for small, but He's preparing large. You asked for comfortable, but He's building extraordinary. You get frustrated because the plan isn't going your way. But that's because your way was too small. Your way was too narrow. Your way was too safe. God's plan doesn't fit into your box because His plan breaks the box. You've got to stop shrinking your prayers to fit your comfort zone. Stop asking based on what you think is possible and start asking based on what you know He's capable of. His plan isn't to just get you through, it's to get you beyond. Your plan may protect you, but His plan will promote you. Your plan may get you by, but His plan will take you higher. Your plan may make sense, but His plan will make history. You've got to learn how to release your little so you can grab His big. Release your safe so you can hold His supernatural. Release your vision so you can live in His. Because when His plan takes over, it will blow your mind every single time. The biggest stress in your life comes from trying to figure out how. How will it happen? How will it work out? How will I get through this? You sit there running scenarios like you're the project manager of your own miracle, but the how is not your job, it's His. You waste so much energy worrying about mechanics instead of walking in obedience. You keep asking questions you'll never have the answers to, and it paralyzes you. How will I afford it? How will they respond? How will I make it? That's not your assignment. Your job is faith, not formulas. Your job is trust, not timelines. Your job is obedience, not outcomes. The how belongs to God because only He knows how to pull off the impossible. Every time you demand to know how, you're shrinking faith down to logic, and logic can't contain miracles. If you can explain it, it's not faith. If you can map it out, it's not supernatural. Faith starts where how ends. The how will drive you crazy if you let it. You'll lose sleep, lose peace, lose joy, trying to figure out details that were never in your control. Meanwhile, God is waiting on you to just release it and walk forward. When you let go of how, you find peace. You find freedom. You find energy you didn't know you had. Because the weight of the how is too heavy for you anyway. It was never meant to be carried by you. The only thing you need to know is who. Who's in control? Who's faithful? Who's working on your behalf? When you know the who, the how becomes irrelevant. Because God doesn't need your calculations. He just needs your trust. Patience is the proof of real trust. If you truly trust, you won't panic when it takes longer than you thought. If you truly trust, you won't rush when the process feels slow. Patience says, I believe so deeply that I can wait without fear. But waiting is the hardest part. You want quick results, quick breakthroughs, quick answers. You live in a microwave world, but God works in a slow cooker. Quick doesn't always mean ready. Quick doesn't always mean strong. Quick doesn't always mean right. Patience isn't passive. It's powerful. It's not sitting still doing nothing. It's working, preparing, moving, while trusting the outcome to God's timing. Patience is active faith that says, I'm not stopping, but I'm also not stressing. Impatience will make you settle for less. It will push you into relationships you weren't meant for, jobs you weren't prepared for, decisions you weren't ready for, and then you'll wonder why it fell apart so fast, because anything you rush will crumble. Patience is what stabilizes you. It keeps you steady when nothing looks like it's happening. It keeps you grounded when everyone else is moving faster. It reminds you that delay is not denial and that waiting is not wasted. Patience is proof you believe God knows better than your calendar. It's proof that your trust is bigger than your timeline. It's proof that you believe His season is better than your schedule. When you learn patience, you stop comparing yourself to others. You stop stressing about why it's happening for them and not for you. You stop thinking you're behind. Because you realize your path has its own timing, its own rhythm, its own season. And once you accept that, waiting no longer feels like punishment. It feels like preparation. There are things you've been carrying that are way too big for you. You're losing sleep over battles you can't win, stressing over problems you can't solve, worrying about outcomes you can't change. But here's the truth. You're not supposed to handle it, because God can handle what you can't. Think about the last time you thought it was over and somehow you made it through. That wasn't your strength. That was His. Think about the times you had no plan, no resources, no way out, and something still shifted. That wasn't coincidence. That was God. You keep exhausting yourself trying to fight battles that were already won. You keep draining yourself trying to fix things you don't have the power to fix. You're operating outside your capacity, and that's why you're so tired. When you recognize your limits, you discover His limitless power. When you finally admit, this is too big for me, that's when He steps in. But as long as you keep pretending you can do it alone, you'll keep drowning under the weight. God doesn't need your stress. He needs your surrender. He doesn't need your sleepless nights. He needs your trust. He doesn't need your panic. He needs your permission to take it. The peace you've been looking for doesn't come from solving the problem. It comes from transferring it, handing it over, saying, this is not mine to carry anymore. That's where freedom is. Some of you are carrying things that could be lifted in a second if you just let them go. You've been living with pressure you weren't built for. But God's shoulders were built for it. His strength was made for it. His grace was designed for it. And when you let Him handle it, you'll wonder why you ever thought you had to do it alone. Every new level in your life requires a release. You can't step into the next chapter while clinging to the last one. You can't walk through a new door while dragging old baggage. Letting go is not optional. It's the key. Some of you are standing at the doorway of your next season, but your hands are full. You're holding on to old pain, old habits, old relationships, old fears, and you can't receive what's on the other side because you refuse to release what's behind you. The next chapter is already written, but you can't read it if you're stuck rereading the old one. God is ready to turn the page, but you keep going back to the last paragraph. That's why you feel stuck. It's not that there isn't more. It's that you won't let go of what was. Every breakthrough requires a sacrifice. Every blessing requires space. Every elevation requires empty hands. You can't climb higher if your arms are wrapped around what's pulling you down. Letting go doesn't mean you didn't value the last chapter. It means you value the next one more. It means you're willing to release what's comfortable for what's greater. It means you're willing to trade what's safe for what's supernatural. If you don't let go, you'll stay trapped in cycles that repeat year after year. Same battles, same heartbreaks, same regrets. But the moment you release, you break the cycle. You open the flow. You step into new. Your next level isn't waiting on more effort. It's waiting on more release. The key isn't working harder. It's trusting deeper. The shift isn't in your hustle. It's in your surrender. Because letting go is not just the end of something, it's the unlock for everything God's been waiting to give you.